Getting started. So the idea in this playlist is to actually put together a game which is like Geometry Dash, but we can't call it Geometry Dash because that's illegal, it's copyright. So we're going to call it something like Chicken Dash. Yeah, let's do that instead. So what we need to do first of all in the Unity hub, can you click on 2D built-in render pipeline, basically the 2D option. Make sure you give it a proper name as well. So Chicken Dash, we'll call it, and make sure you've got it saved. I'm going to put Chicken Dash 2 because I've already done this. Make sure you've got it saved in a place where you know you can get it to. So if I click on Create Project, the editor will load up. And if I wait patiently, we'll eventually get to the point of I can show you a couple of things. Sometimes when it's the first time you load up Unity or it's the first time you like set up a game, it can take a little while, but at least gives you a chance to get on with things and wait for that to happen. But eventually, ta-da! You get presented with this. So this is Unity, so this is the main window. This is our scene, as you can tell by here. We've also got a game tab, which we'll have a look a little bit later. We've got a play sign at the top. Forget about the other bits and pieces, but that allows you to play a game once you've actually got things kind of set up here. Over on the left-hand side is our hierarchy, and at the moment, the only thing which is actually in our game is our main camera. When you click on an icon here in your hierarchy, so eventually you'll have like a player, ground, enemies, coins, that type of stuff listed on here, you'll be able to come across the inspector. So if I click away from the camera, and you will see that it's got the main camera there and I can rename it, reposition it, change the background color, etc., etc. And this changes depending on what it is you've got selected. And at the bottom of the screen, this is our scene. So currently we've got this one scene set up called sample scene, and you might have scenes which are for your game over screen, your intro screen, that type of thing. And as we bring things in, they'll appear down here as well, and so will our script. So that's the layout of what we're looking at. Now, at this point, we're going to make a prototype Chicken Dash game. So I'm not going to be bringing anything in at this stage, but I am going to be using what's currently set up in here. So if I click on the plus sign over in the top left-hand corner, you've got these different options to choose from. I'm just going to add a square, and that's going to act as our player. So I'm going to call it player up here in the top right, and you can see it renames over on the left hand side. I'm going to keep the position as it is for the time being, and I'm not going to mess around with any of this stuff at this stage. I'm also going to add in a ground, so I'm going to do the same thing again by going on to 2D object, sprites, and another square, which is in exactly the same place. So I'm going to call that ground, or it could be floor, that type of thing. And the other thing I need to point out are these tools here. So the tool which we've currently got selected, if I double click on ground, we'll zoom in on it, allows us to resize, the rectangle tool allows us to resize our ground. And as I'm moving it here, look on the left on here, you can see on the right hand side, these will readjust as well. So that's the position of it. That is the scale of it, so it makes it bigger, smaller, that type of thing. Personally, I like to actually do it by freehand myself. So I'll click on it, drag it down out of the way, and I'm gonna rescale it like so. So if you click on scale, it allows us just to grab on the red and just pull it out as far as we want. And I can also do the same with the green as well if I want to make it chunkier. Now, I'm going to change the color of it because I want it to stand out over our player because our player is currently white, so is our ground. So if I click on the color and I just choose something in there actually like a darker color, that'd be perfect as it is. So you can mess around with these settings. You can actually make things look see-through as well by dragging left and right. But that's fine for the time being. Now, if I press play, if I go to game, that's what our game currently looks like. So nothing currently happens. So if I press play, you'll notice when it loads up, it doesn't give us any error messages, and I wouldn't expect to at this point because we haven't actually done anything. But no matter what I do on my keyboard, nothing is happening with my player. And while you've got your game kind of running, if you click on scene, you can click on things, you can still kind of see what's going on. But if you've got that highlighted at the top there, the play button, any edits you make at this point won't actually save when you come back to this point here. So it's just a time to test and mess around with things. Now, first thing I want to do, we're not actually going to make anything happen in this video, we're just getting things set up, but I want to add a collider to my player. So I'm going to add on the player, I'm just going to click on the minus sign there for sprite renderer so it kind of wraps up. And you'll notice it says add component at the bottom. I'm going to add a box collider, and as I start to type that out, it gives me the options. Because this is a 2D game, it's that one we need to use rather than the 3D one, because that does mess things up if you don't click on the right things. And then it will give me options as to, do I want to edit the collider? But if I actually double click on the player and zoom in, the collider, see these green dots, is exactly around the shape. Because it's a box collider and it's a box, it fits in perfectly. I don't need to mess around with that. And we will be looking at these at a later point as well. I'm also going to do the same for my ground. So I don't actually need to be able to see it. I can just click on it here. And I'm going to add the component, and that's already there from the last time I did it. So that's also got a box collider. Now, nothing's going to happen because when I press play, they're not going to collide into each other because they're still sat in that position. In some ways, it thinks that we're looking down on the game, but I'm looking at this from a side scroller like Geometry Dash. I know I'm not able to say it. So this gravity should play into this and it should fall down onto it. Now, if I click on my player again and I add another component, and this time I'm going to type in Rigidbody, but I'm going to spell it right this time. And remember, it's got to be the 2D one. And in the rigid 2D look, it says gravity scale 1, so that should mean that it drops. Now, I'm going to also add it onto our no, I'm actually not going to do that because if I add a rigid body onto our floor, then that's going to fall as well. But if I press play and we let it drop, then we can see that gravity is currently working. Now, nothing else is happening at this stage because all we've done is added colliders onto these. And if we didn't have a collider on this, so if I just press play and on the box collider for ground, I'm just going to untick it. So it doesn't have a box collider associated with it. Now, this time when I press play, the player will drop, but because there's no collider on the ground, it just falls straight through. So that's the reason why we had box colliders to it. I don't know why I'm struggling to say that. Right, in the next video, we're actually going to get it so our player starts to move from left to right. And at some stage, we're going to have to get it so the camera follows it. And we're also going to need to make sure that it can jump to avoid obstacles as well. But that's in the next video. Hi, Future Rob here. Something past Rob didn't explain, or he didn't realize it at the time. You do need to think about how your game is going to be displayed when you've finished it and you've got to export it. And what I mean by that is it going to be displayed full screen, or is it going to be in a particular size window? So, for example, if I click on game, if I want it to be roughly the same scale as this kind of free aspect ratio thing I've got going on here. Now, if you did want it to be a specific size, so it doesn't take up the whole screen, it'll be a window type of thing. That's something I'll show you how to do in the exporting video, which is later in this playlist. But if you wanted yours to be full screen, then it's probably a good idea at this point to come to this on the game tab and make sure you click on 16:9 ratio because that's what most machines actually have, and you work then within this space. If we come back to scene, you can see then the camera has actually resized itself to fit into that. So the idea would be then you make sure that your player is in there, and as you're going along, you're making sure that things are on screen, like at the end of the level, stuff like that. Because at this point, if I go back to my free aspect, when I've kind of done with this game, you can see that my player isn't actually viewable. Well, there is viewable here, but there isn't when I go to 16:9 and later parts of my level as well. So, like I said, if you want to do yours in a window, just keep it as free aspect. If not, set to a 16:9 and then try to work within the camera space in terms of what you want to see on screen.